50,000? You think I'm stupid? Karen Mitchell's voice echoed through Atlantic Trust's marble lobby as she slammed Marcus Williams' withdrawal slip back at him. The paper hit his chest and fluttered to the floor. People like you don't have $50,000. She swept his ID cards off the counter with her forearm, scattering them across the pristine tiles. Marcus, dressed in a simple navy sweater and dark jeans, slowly crouched to collect each document. Other customers stopped mid-conversation. Phones appeared. The security guard moved closer, hand hovering near his radio. Marcus straightened, papers in hand, his expression unchanged. He folded the withdrawal slip carefully and slipped it into his pocket. Have you ever watched someone refuse something that belonged to you simply because they couldn't believe you owned it? Marcus had walked into Atlantic Trust at exactly 3:47 p.m., 9 minutes before the Federal Reserve's daily settlement window closed. The timing wasn't coincidental. I need to withdraw $50,000 in cash, he'd said simply, sliding his account information across the counter to Karen Mitchell. Karen's eyes narrowed as she scanned the paperwork. Her manicured fingers drummed against the marble surface. This is unusual. Most people don't carry this kind of cash. Most people aren't me. She glanced up, taking in his appearance again. Navy sweater, dark jeans, leather loafers that looked expensive but not flashy. Nothing screamed wealth, which clearly bothered her. I'll need to verify this with our fraud department, Karen announced loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. Large cash withdrawals require additional screening. Marcus checked his watch, a gesture Karen missed entirely. How long will that take? Could be hours. Maybe you should consider a cashier's check instead? I specified cash for a reason. Karen's supervisor, Tom Bradley, appeared as if summoned by radar. His polyester tie and nervous energy marked him as middle management trying too hard. Problem here, Karen? This gentleman wants $50,000 in cash. I'm running standard verification protocols. Tom studied Marcus with barely concealed suspicion. Sir, that's a significant amount. We have policies about structuring and— I'm not structuring anything, Marcus interrupted calmly. I'm withdrawing my own money from my own account. Well, we need to be certain it's actually your account, Karen interjected. Identity theft is rampant these days. She made a show of examining his driver's license under a magnifying glass, holding it up to the light as if checking for counterfeiting. The performance was deliberate, designed to humiliate. This address doesn't match our records, she lied smoothly. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing his banking app with the correct address displayed. Karen barely glanced at it. Apps can be manipulated, she dismissed. Jessica Lane, a marketing executive waiting in line, had started recording the moment Karen raised her voice. Her Instagram live feed showed 3 viewers initially: her roommate, her sister, and a coworker. Y'all seeing this? She whispered to her phone. They're straight up profiling this man. The viewer count jumped to 15, then 30. Comments began flooding in. This is insane. Call corporate. Where is this happening? Jessica adjusted her angle to capture Marcus's composed demeanor contrasted with Karen's increasingly aggressive body language. The bank's official Twitter account at Atlantic Trust remained blissfully unaware that their brand was about to trend for all the wrong reasons. While Karen consulted with Tom in loud whispers, Marcus received a phone call. He answered quietly, stepping slightly away from the counter. Williams. Yes, I'm running a few minutes behind. Tell the board I'll be there shortly. Karen caught fragments of the conversation and rolled her eyes dramatically. Board meeting, she muttered to Tom. Sure. Marcus ended the call and returned to the counter, where Karen had prepared additional paperwork. We'll need 3 forms of identification plus verification of your employment status, she announced. For a withdrawal from my own account? Bank policy, sir. Marcus reached into his wallet, revealing a black American Express Centurion card for just a moment before selecting his regular credit card. Karen was too busy organizing her paperwork fortress to notice. "Employment verification will take 24 hours minimum," Tom added helpfully. "I see." Marcus glanced at the digital clock above the teller windows. 3:51 p.m. "And if I were to speak with your branch manager?" "Patricia Wong is in a meeting," Karen replied curtly. "She doesn't handle routine transactions anyway." Jessica's live stream had exploded to over 200 viewers. Her whispered commentary provided context for newcomers joining the feed. "Dude in the navy sweater just wants to withdraw his own money. The bank lady is acting like he's trying to rob the place." The comments section erupted. "This is racial profiling. Someone call the news. What bank is this? I'm screen recording this." Meanwhile, Marcus stood with preternatural calm, seemingly unbothered by the circus forming around him. His fingers drummed once against his leg, the only sign of any internal reaction. "Sir," Karen's voice had taken on a patronizing tone, "perhaps you don't understand how banking works. Large cash transactions require—" "I understand perfectly," Marcus interrupted softly. "The question is whether you do." The digital clock ticked to 3:52 p.m. 7 minutes until close. Karen picked up her desk phone, making another show of dialing an extension. "Security? We may have a situation developing at the main counter." Patricia Wong emerged from her corner office like a predator sensing vulnerability. As branch manager for 7 years, she had perfected the art of intimidation through calculated authority. Her $3,000 suit and razor-sharp bob haircut served as armor in customer confrontations. "What exactly is happening here?" Her voice carried the weight of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. "Large cash withdrawal request, ma'am," Tom Bradley explained, practically vibrating with nervous energy. $50,000. We're following all standard verification protocols per your standing orders." Patricia's gaze swept over Marcus with surgical precision. Simple navy sweater, dark jeans, no designer labels visible. Her mental algorithm processed the data. Definitely not their typical private banking clientele, probably trying to withdraw money he didn't legitimately possess. "Sir, I'm Patricia Wong, branch manager. Requests of this magnitude require executive authorization due to federal anti-money laundering statutes." She delivered the explanation slowly, as if speaking to someone with limited comprehension. "How long does executive authorization typically require?" Marcus asked politely. "That depends entirely on the complexity of your particular circumstances." The deliberate pause before circumstances hung in the air like an accusation. Patricia had weaponized this technique over countless customer interactions, implying irregularities without explicit accusations, maintaining corporate plausible deniability while achieving desired results. Jessica's Instagram Live viewer count jumped past 800. Her phone's battery indicator dropped to 25%, but adrenaline kept her recording steady. "The branch manager just entered the situation," she whispered to her audience. "Energy just shifted completely." The comment stream accelerated. "This lady seems even worse." Someone recorded this separately. "What bank allows this behavior?" 2 security guards monitored the main entrance. Miguel Santos, a decorated former military police officer with 3 tours overseas, and David Park, barely 6 months into his first security position after graduating from community college. Patricia's subtle hand signal brought both men toward the counter. Miguel's experienced eyes assessed the situation with professional skepticism. Nothing about the customer suggested threat or instability. David, however, eager to demonstrate authority in his new role, responded immediately to management's implied directive. "Gentlemen, we may need to escort this individual from the premises while we investigate potential account irregularities," Patricia announced, projecting her voice across the marble lobby. "Sir, I need you to step away from the counter immediately," David commanded, his voice cracking with nervous energy. His hand drifted toward his radio, fingers twitching with anticipated importance. I haven't completed my transaction, Marcus replied with unchanged composure. There is no transaction, Karen interjected with undisguised satisfaction. Your request has been officially denied pending a comprehensive fraud investigation. Miguel Santos shifted uncomfortably. His combat experience had taught him to recognize genuine threats versus manufactured ones. This customer exhibited none of the behavioral markers associated with criminal intent. David, however, stepped closer to Marcus, emboldened by management support. You heard the lady. Time to go. The lobby atmosphere thickened with tension. Other customers abandoned any pretense of conducting their own business, phones emerging like flowers turning toward sunlight. Jessica's live stream had become the epicenter of viral outrage. Her viewer count exploded past 1,500 as shares propagated across multiple platforms simultaneously. Y'all, this is insane, she whispered urgently. Someone just texted me that hashtag bank racism is trending nationally. This is happening right now. The comment section moved faster than human comprehension. What's Atlantic Trust's corporate number? Someone called Channel 7 News. I'm downloading this video. This is definitely illegal. Where exactly is this branch? Unknown to bank personnel, 4 separate customers had contacted local news organizations. WABC-TV's assignment editor had dispatched their nearest crew. The New York Post's digital team retweeted Jessica's stream with explosive results. Breaking: alleged racial discrimination at Manhattan Bank captured live. Atlantic Trust's social media monitoring team, tracking brand mentions from their Midtown headquarters, watched helplessly as negative sentiment indicators spiked 600% within 5 minutes. Emergency protocols automatically notified senior executives. Tom Bradley, finally registering the forest of phones pointed toward their counter, approached the nearest recording customer. Excuse me, sir, but unauthorized photography is prohibited within bank premises, he declared with manufactured authority. This is a public accommodation, the customer replied calmly, continuing to record. And this appears to be newsworthy civil rights documentation. The phrase civil rights hit the lobby like a verbal bomb. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even more phones appeared. Patricia decided to terminate this embarrassing spectacle through overwhelming institutional force. She lifted the desk telephone, dialing with theatrical deliberation designed for maximum psychological impact. NYPD. This is Patricia Wong, branch manager at Atlantic Trust, 485 Madison Avenue. We have an individual refusing to vacate the premises after being denied service. Suspected fraud attempt requiring immediate intervention. The words NYPD and fraud electrified every person within earshot. Jessica's live stream comments exploded into digital chaos. Marcus remained perfectly motionless except for his controlled breathing, which never varied despite escalating circumstances. Ma'am, I haven't refused to leave, he stated quietly. I simply requested to complete a legitimate transaction. Your so-called transaction was denied, Patricia snapped. Now I'm requiring you to depart voluntarily before law enforcement arrives to remove you. Miguel Santos took a decisive step forward, his conscience finally overriding institutional loyalty. Ma'am, respectfully, this customer hasn't exhibited any behavior warranting police intervention. Patricia spun toward him like a coiled spring. Are you questioning my professional judgment, Miguel? The veteran security guard's jaw muscles tightened visibly, but he stepped backward. David Park seized the moment to advance closer to Marcus, drunk on Patricia's apparent support. You heard her, buddy. Leave now or get arrested later. Your choice. The lobby fell into cathedral silence except for air conditioning hums and distant Manhattan traffic. Marcus stood motionless, surrounded by hostile employees, dozens of recording devices, and over 4,000 viewers watching via Jessica's now viral live stream. He extracted his phone with calculated slowness, causing David to tense dramatically. Instead of confrontation, Marcus simply dialed a number and held the device calmly to his ear. "Hi, it's Marcus," he said quietly, his voice carrying precisely far enough for Patricia to overhear. "We have a developing situation at branch 247. Yes, I'm physically present now. Completely understood. 3 minutes." He disconnected and returned the phone to his pocket with the same deliberate precision. "Branch 247? Patricia repeated, genuine confusion creeping into her voice for the first time. "How do you know our internal designation code?" "That is your official branch identifier, correct?" Marcus asked with pleasant curiosity. The digital clock above the teller stations displayed 3:54 p.m. The Federal Reserve settlement would close in 3 minutes, but Marcus no longer appeared concerned about timing constraints. Jessica repositioned her phone angle, instinctively sensing narrative climax approaching. Her viewer count had surpassed 4,500, with local news crews racing toward their location. "Sir," Marcus addressed Patricia with unchanged calm, "before your police officers arrive, I'd like you to verify something specific." "I'm not verifying anything," Patricia replied curtly. "You're leaving immediately." "Your employment contract," Marcus continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Section 12, subsection 4, regarding institutional discrimination protocols and associated penalties." Patricia's confident mask cracked visibly. How could this random customer possess knowledge of confidential employment contract details? The clock advanced to 3:55 p.m. 2 minutes remained. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket with the same measured precision he'd maintained throughout the ordeal. Patricia tensed. David's hand moved to his radio, and Miguel positioned himself strategically. Every phone in the lobby focused on whatever Marcus was about to reveal. He withdrew his phone again, but this time opened his email application. The screen illuminated his calm face as he scrolled through messages with deliberate slowness. After selecting one specific email, he turned the device toward Patricia. "Would you mind reading this aloud?" he asked politely. Patricia leaned forward reluctantly, squinting at the small text. Her eyes widened as the sender's information registered. Her face drained of color completely, transforming from corporate authority to genuine terror in the span of 3 seconds. I can't," she stammered, her voice barely audible. "Please," Marcus encouraged gently. "Share it with everyone here." Patricia's hands began trembling visibly. Karen, curiosity overcoming caution, leaned across the counter to glimpse the screen. The moment her eyes processed the email header, she staggered backward as if physically struck. The email's sender line read, "Board of Directors, Atlantic Trust Holdings Corporation." The subject line, "Emergency Shareholder Meeting, Branch Performance Review." But it was the recipient that shattered their world. Marcus Williams, principal shareholder. Jessica's livestream audience watched Patricia's face contort through stages of realization. The comment section exploded with confusion and anticipation. What did she see? Someone zoom in on that phone. Her face just went white. "This is about to get good." Karen's voice emerged as a strangled whisper. Mr. Williams?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Other bank employees within earshot turned toward the commotion. Tom Bradley, sensing catastrophe without understanding its nature, approached the counter with growing dread. Marcus pocketed his phone calmly. "Yes, Karen." Marcus Williams, principal shareholder, Atlantic Trust Holdings Corporation. "I believe we've met." The words landed like individual bombs. Principal shareholder. The phrase ricocheted through the lobby, reaching other customers who immediately understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. Miguel Santos, despite his military training, felt his jaw drop involuntarily. David Park, who had been aggressively demanding Marcus leave moments earlier, now stood frozen like a deer in headlights. "Sir, there's been a terrible misunderstanding," Patricia managed, her corporate composure crumbling completely. Her voice cracked with desperation. "We were simply following standard protocol." "Standard protocol," Marcus interrupted quietly. "For racially profiling your company's largest individual shareholder?" The phrase racially profiling hit the live stream audience like lightning. Jessica's viewer count spiked past 6,000 as screen recordings spread across social media platforms faster than wildfire. Tom Bradley's polyester tie suddenly felt like a noose. "Mr. Williams, please. We had no way of knowing." "Knowing what, exactly?" Marcus asked with dangerous calm. "That I'm qualified to access my own money? Or that I'm qualified to own 12% of your employer?" The number 12% sent shockwaves through everyone present. 12% of Atlantic Trust holdings represented approximately $2.8 billion in market value. Marcus opened his phone once more, this time accessing a different application. The screen displayed real-time stock prices and portfolio information. Atlantic Trust Holdings' stock chart showed minute-by-minute fluctuations. "This live stream has been viewed 6,000 times in the past 8 minutes, he announced, reading from social media monitoring alerts on his device. "Our stock price has dropped 3% in the same time frame. Coincidence?" Patricia's legs nearly buckled. A 3% drop represented roughly $84 million in market capitalization loss. Her annual salary wouldn't cover even a fraction of that damage. "Mr. Williams," she pleaded, "please tell us how to fix this situation." "Fix what situation, Patricia?" Marcus asked. "The situation where you called the police on your own shareholder for attempting to withdraw his own money? Or the situation where you've provided a live demonstration of systemic discrimination to thousands of witnesses?" Karen had begun hyperventilating. Her carefully constructed facade of authority had evaporated completely, leaving behind raw panic. "We can make this right," she gasped. "Whatever you need." "What I needed," Marcus replied evenly, "was to withdraw $50,000 at 3:47 p.m. It's now 3:56 p.m. The Federal Reserve settlement window has closed." The admission hung ominously in the air, but Marcus's expression suggested this timing failure was somehow less important than they'd assumed. Jessica adjusted her phone angle to capture the entire scene. Her audience had grown to over 8,000 viewers, with shares proliferating across TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook simultaneously. "But here's what you don't understand yet," Marcus continued, his voice maintaining the same calm tone that had never wavered. "This wasn't a random banking transaction." He paused, allowing the statement to settle. "This was a scheduled assessment." Patricia's confusion deepened. "Assessment?" "I've been conducting systematic evaluations of all 847 Atlantic Trust branch locations over the past 18 months. Today was branch 247's turn. The number 847 hit like a physical blow. Every Atlantic Trust branch." Patricia's mind raced through the implications while her career prospects crumbled in real time. "This was planned?" Tom Bradley asked weakly. "Extensively planned," Marcus confirmed. "I've now personally tested 247 branches. The results have been illuminating." He scrolled through his phone, revealing a comprehensive spreadsheet filled with data points, ratings, and detailed notes. Branch discrimination incidents, customer satisfaction scores, compliance violations, staff training deficiencies, all meticulously documented. Karen slumped against the counter, the magnitude of her mistake finally registering completely. "The board meeting I mentioned," Marcus continued. "It begins in exactly 4 minutes. I'll be presenting my findings to the full board of directors, along with this live stream as Exhibit A." David Park, who had threatened to arrest Atlantic Trust's principal shareholder, looked physically ill. "But don't worry," Marcus said with the faintest hint of a smile. "I always save the most interesting data for last." The clock displayed 3:57 p.m. In 3 minutes, Marcus Williams would walk into a boardroom and potentially destroy careers, reshape corporate policy, or restructure an entire financial institution. But first, he had one final revelation that would determine whether Branch 247 survived the next 24 hours. Marcus accessed a comprehensive spreadsheet on his phone, the screen illuminating years of meticulous research. His finger scrolled through tabs labeled by quarter, region, and incident type. The data told a story that Atlantic Trust's executives had either ignored or actively concealed. Branch 247's customer satisfaction rating, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the silent lobby, currently stands at 2.1 out of 5. The company average is 4.3. Patricia's face went ashen. Those numbers were confidential quarterly metrics, accessible only to senior management and board members. Discrimination complaints filed against this specific branch, 73 in the past 8 months. Industry standard for comparable institutions, 4 annually. Karen slumped against the counter, each statistic hitting like a physical blow. Jessica's live stream audience had swollen to over 12,000 viewers, with major news outlets now embedding the feed directly into their breaking news coverage. Revenue loss from closed accounts due to discriminatory treatment, $18.7 million this fiscal year. That represents 12.3% of this branch's total deposit base. The numbers weren't just damning, they were catastrophic. Tom Bradley's nervous energy had transformed into complete paralysis as he realized the magnitude of institutional failure he'd participated in. Marcus continued scrolling, revealing additional data points with surgical precision. Staff turnover rate, 67% annually, compared to 23% company-wide. Exit interview citations of hostile work environment and discriminatory management practices, 89% of departing employees. The precision of these statistics stunned everyone present. This wasn't casual observation. This was forensic analysis conducted over months of investigation. Now, let's discuss federal compliance violations, Marcus said, switching to a different application on his phone. The recording of this interaction has captured 14 separate violations of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. He began reading directly from legal statutes, his voice maintaining the same calm tone that had never wavered throughout the ordeal. Section 1002.6 prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, marital status, or age. Every statement made by bank personnel in the past 9 minutes violates this federal statute. Patricia's legs trembled visibly. Federal violations carried penalties that could destroy careers and trigger criminal investigations. The Fair Housing Act, Section 3605, extends these protections to financial services. Miss Mitchell's comment about people like you constitutes textbook discriminatory language under federal law. Karen had begun hyperventilating audibly. Her discriminatory statements were now preserved on multiple recordings, witnessed by thousands of viewers, and cited against specific federal statutes by the company's principal shareholder. Bank Secrecy Act compliance violations, requiring excessive documentation without reasonable suspicion, constitutes discriminatory enforcement. The FDIC has specific guidelines about equitable treatment protocols. Miguel Santos, despite his military background, found himself learning about banking regulations he'd never encountered during security training. David Park looked physically ill, realizing he'd threatened to arrest someone who could theoretically have him terminated with a single phone call. Truth in Lending Act violations, denying service based on customer appearance rather than creditworthiness, violates Section 1601. Community Reinvestment Act. Section 2903 requires fair lending practices across all demographic groups. The legal citations continued with devastating precision. Marcus had clearly prepared for this moment with extraordinary thoroughness. Marcus accessed real-time social media monitoring tools that tracked Atlantic Trust's digital reputation across multiple platforms simultaneously. Twitter mentions of Atlantic Trust have increased 2,400% in the past 12 minutes. Sentiment analysis, 96% negative. Number sign, bank racism is currently trending in 15 major metropolitan areas. The live stream comment section moved faster than human comprehension, with viewers sharing contact information for news organizations, civil rights attorneys, and regulatory agencies. Someone call CNN. This needs to go to the NAACP. I'm closing my Atlantic Trust account tomorrow. This is evidence for a federal lawsuit. Instagram shares of this incident, 847 and climbing. TikTok reposts, 312. Facebook cross-platform sharing, 1,203 unique shares in 9 minutes. Jessica adjusted her phone battery pack, realizing she was documenting what could become a landmark civil rights case. Her follower count had increased by 3,000 people in real time. Local news crews from channels 2, 4, and 7 are currently en route. Estimated arrival, 4 minutes. The New York Post has assigned their lead investigative reporter to this story. Patricia's corporate training had never prepared her for managing a viral discrimination incident with thousands of witnesses and incoming media coverage. Reddit threads discussing this incident, 47 active conversations across 12 different subreddits, LinkedIn professional network shares, 89 posts from current and former Atlantic Trust employees expressing concern about company culture. The scope of digital amplification was unprecedented. This wasn't just viral content, it was becoming a case study in corporate crisis management failure. Marcus opened his portfolio management application, displaying real-time Atlantic Trust Holdings stock performance with devastating clarity. Atlantic Trust Holdings opened this morning at $127.43 per share. Current price, $121.89. That's a 4.3% decline in 18 minutes, representing approximately $127 million in market capitalization loss. The numbers hit the room like artillery fire. Patricia's annual salary was $85,000. She had just participated in creating financial damage equivalent to 1,494 years of her gross income. My personal shareholding represents 12.7% of outstanding shares, valued at $2.83 billion at this morning's opening price. Current value, $2.71 billion. I've personally lost $120 million while standing in your lobby. Karen's face had gone completely white. She was witnessing someone discuss losing more money in 20 minutes than her entire extended family would earn across multiple generations. Institutional shareholders are monitoring the situation through automated alert systems. BlackRock's algorithmic trading systems flagged unusual negative sentiment at 3:52 p.m. Vanguard's ESG compliance team received automated notifications about potential discrimination violations at 3:54 p.m. The implications crystallized with terrifying clarity. Major institutional investors were already aware of this incident through sophisticated monitoring systems that tracked social media sentiment and regulatory compliance metrics. Fidelity's risk management algorithms have flagged Atlantic Trust for enhanced monitoring due to reputational concerns. State pension funds in California, New York, and Illinois have automatic divestment triggers for companies with documented discrimination patterns. The financial ecosystem was responding to this incident faster than any human could manage. Algorithmic trading systems and institutional compliance protocols had already begun reshaping Atlantic Trust's investment landscape. Marcus switched to another application displaying government agency contact logs and automated reporting systems. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's automated monitoring system flagged this incident at 3:53 p.m. Their discrimination complaint database has received 47 new entries in the past 10 minutes, all referencing this live stream. Patricia felt the walls closing in. Federal agencies were already investigating before she'd even fully processed what was happening. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation Compliance Monitoring triggered. Office of the Comptroller of the Currency Fair Lending Review. Automatically initiated. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Notification sent through automated discrimination reporting protocols. The regulatory machinery of the federal government was activating in response to Jessica's live stream and the associated social media explosion. State banking regulators in New York have received 23 formal complaints in the past 8 minutes. The New York State Department of Financial Services has opened a preliminary investigation file. Tom Bradley had stopped breathing entirely. His career trajectory had just shifted from potential promotion to probable termination and possible criminal investigation in the span of 20 minutes. Marcus checked his watch. 3:58 p.m. 2 minutes until the emergency board meeting he'd scheduled for exactly this moment. The Atlantic Trust Holdings Board of Directors is convening in 90 seconds. I'll be presenting today's findings as part of my comprehensive branch assessment report. He opened yet another application, revealing a presentation template titled Systematic Discrimination Analysis, Branch Network Assessment Summary. This presentation includes today's live stream footage, social media analytics, financial impact analysis, and federal compliance violation documentation. It also contains similar data from the previous 246 branch assessments I've conducted over 18 months. Patricia's knees nearly buckled. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a systematic evaluation that had likely uncovered institutional patterns of discrimination across the entire Atlantic Trust network. The board will vote on several proposals during today's emergency session. Proposal 1. Immediate termination of employees who engaged in discriminatory conduct. Proposal 2. Comprehensive policy restructuring to prevent future violations. Proposal 3. Allocation of $75 million for bias prevention technology and training programs. The phrase, immediate termination, hit everyone present like a physical blow. Proposal 4, Marcus continued with devastating calm. Closure of branch locations that demonstrate consistent discrimination patterns and cannot be reformed through training and oversight. Branch closure meant 23 employees losing their livelihoods, community banking services eliminated, and corporate acknowledgement of systematic failure. Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The contact name visible on his screen read, Board Chair, Atlantic Trust Holdings. "Excuse me," he said politely, answering the call on speaker mode so everyone could hear both sides of the conversation. "Marcus, we're ready to begin the emergency session," came a distinguished voice through the phone speaker. "Are you able to join us immediately? I'm currently at branch 247, documenting the conclusion of today's assessment. I should be able to join within 3 minutes." Understood. The preliminary social media reports are quite concerning. How severe is the situation? Marcus glanced around the lobby, taking in Patricia's terrified expression, Karen's hyperventilation, the crowd of recording customers, and Jessica's live stream audience of nearly 15,000 viewers. I would characterize it as a complete institutional failure requiring immediate and comprehensive remediation. Very well. We'll wait for your presentation before making any decisions about personnel or policy changes. The call ended, leaving absolute silence in the lobby. Marcus returned his phone to his pocket and addressed Patricia directly. "You have approximately 2 minutes to decide how you'd like this situation to conclude. I can present today's events as an isolated incident requiring localized correction, or as evidence of systematic failure requiring dramatic restructuring." Patricia's voice emerged as barely a whisper. What would you recommend?" "That depends entirely on your response to the next 60 seconds. The digital clock above the teller stations displayed 3:59 p.m. In 1 minute, Marcus Williams would walk into the most important board meeting in Atlantic Trust's corporate history, carrying documentation that could reshape an entire financial institution or destroy individual careers. The choice now belonged to the people who had spent the past 12 minutes learning the most expensive lesson of their professional lives. Patricia's voice cracked as she made her desperate plea. "Mr. Williams, please, tell us what we need to do to make this right." Marcus studied her face for a long moment, reading the genuine terror mixed with a dawning understanding of the magnitude of her mistakes. Around them, the lobby remained frozen in anticipation, Phones still recording. Jessica's live stream audience now exceeding 18,000 viewers. Patricia, making this right isn't about fixing a single incident. It's about preventing thousands of future incidents across 847 branch locations. He glanced at his watch. 4 p.m. exactly. The board meeting has begun. I have 2 minutes to join them, or they'll proceed without my input. His tone remained eerily calm, despite the chaos surrounding them. Here's what's going to happen. Marcus opened his phone to a pre-drafted document titled Branch 247 Resolution Protocol. Karen Mitchell, your employment with Atlantic Trust is terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the premises within 5 minutes. Your discriminatory statements violated federal law and company policy. This decision is non-negotiable. Karen's legs gave out completely. She collapsed into her chair, hyperventilating as reality crashed over her. 15 minutes ago, she'd been confident in her authority. Now she was unemployed and facing potential federal investigation. Patricia Wong, you are suspended without pay pending a full investigation into your management practices and this branch's discrimination patterns. The investigation will be conducted by external auditors with civil rights expertise. Patricia's corporate composure finally shattered completely. Tears began streaming down her face as she realized her career was effectively over. Tom Bradley, you're demoted to a teller position with mandatory bias training and probationary status for 6 months. Your salary is reduced accordingly. Marcus turned to the 2 security guards who had participated in the intimidation attempt. David Park, your employment is terminated immediately. Threatening to arrest a customer exercising their legal rights constitutes excessive use of authority. David's face went white. His first security job had lasted exactly 6 months and would end with a termination that would make finding similar employment nearly impossible. Miguel Santos, you demonstrated professional judgment by questioning inappropriate directives. You'll receive commendation and additional civil rights training to help you handle similar situations in the future. Miguel nodded respectfully, relief visible on his face. His military experience and ethical instincts had saved his career. Corporate security protocols will be revised to prevent discriminatory enforcement. New training emphasizes de-escalation and recognition of unconscious bias. Marcus switched to another document on his phone, this one labeled Atlantic Trust Discrimination Prevention Initiative. Effective immediately, all 847 Atlantic Trust branches will implement the Marcus Protocol named after today's incident. This protocol allows any customer to request immediate executive review if they feel they're experiencing discriminatory treatment. Jessica's live stream audience erupted with comments praising the naming convention and the scope of changes being announced in real time. Artificial intelligence monitoring systems will analyze customer interactions for discriminatory language patterns. Every conversation will be automatically flagged for bias indicators and reviewed by compliance officers. The technology solution addressed the core problem. Discrimination often happened subtly, through tone, word choice, and differential treatment that human managers might miss or ignore. Monthly bias recognition workshops replace quarterly compliance meetings. These aren't legal seminars. They're practical training sessions designed to help employees recognize and interrupt their own unconscious biases. Patricia wiped her eyes, realizing that even in her suspension, she was witnessing the creation of industry-leading anti-discrimination protocols. Customer feedback systems will be enhanced with real-time reporting capabilities. Any customer can submit discrimination complaints through mobile apps, websites, or SMS messages that immediately alert regional management. Marcus opened his portfolio application, showing resource allocation for the new initiatives. Atlantic Trust Holdings will allocate $85 million over 3 years for discrimination prevention technology, training, and monitoring systems. This represents the largest private sector investment in bias prevention in banking industry history. The number stunned everyone present. $85 million was more than many small banks' entire annual operating budgets. Branch performance metrics will now include bias incident tracking alongside traditional financial measures. Managers' bonuses will be partially determined by their success in creating inclusive environments. The policy change meant that discrimination would directly impact career advancement and compensation for every manager in the Atlantic Trust system. Victims of discrimination will receive monetary compensation through a victim advocacy fund. Past incidents will be reviewed and eligible customers will receive financial restitution. Karen looked up from her hyperventilating with horror. The company would now be systematically reviewing and compensating for years of discriminatory treatment that she and others had inflicted. Legal partnerships with civil rights organizations will provide ongoing oversight and accountability. The NAACP, Anti-Defamation League, and similar organizations will have formal roles in monitoring our progress. Marcus displayed technical specifications for the bias monitoring systems being implemented. Voice analysis software will detect emotional stress patterns in customer interactions. When customers' voices show distress indicators during routine transactions, managers receive automatic alerts. The technology went beyond simple word recognition to analyze tone, stress levels, and interaction patterns that might indicate discriminatory treatment. Facial expression analysis through security cameras will identify when customers appear uncomfortable or distressed during interactions. This creates objective data about customer experience quality. Tom Bradley realized that every interaction he'd ever had with customers could soon be analyzed by artificial intelligence designed to detect discrimination. Transaction pattern analysis will identify when certain demographic groups receive differential treatment in processing times, documentation requirements, or service quality. The algorithmic approach would make systemic discrimination impossible to hide, even when individual incidents seemed minor or ambiguous. Marcus switched to organizational charts showing the new staffing structure required for bias prevention. Every branch will have a designated customer advocate officer responsible for handling discrimination complaints and ensuring equitable treatment. These positions report directly to regional executives, not local management. The structural change meant that discrimination complaints would bypass the local managers who might be causing the problems. Hiring practices will be revised to prioritize candidates with demonstrated commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Interview panels will include community representatives alongside bank personnel. Patricia realized that the hiring practices she'd used to build her team would be completely restructured to prevent future discrimination. Annual bias audits will be conducted by external firms specializing in civil rights compliance. Results will be published publicly on Atlantic Trust's website for transparency. The public accountability measure meant that any future discrimination incidents would be visible to customers, shareholders, and regulators. Marcus showed real-time social media monitoring as news of the changes spread across digital platforms. Jessica's live stream will be preserved as training material for all Atlantic Trust employees. This incident becomes part of mandatory orientation for new hires. Jessica looked surprised but pleased that her spontaneous recording would help prevent future discrimination. News organizations will receive exclusive access to document the implementation of these changes. Transparency will demonstrate our commitment to reform rather than just crisis management. The media strategy transformed a discrimination incident into a corporate responsibility success story, showing how companies could respond appropriately to systemic problems. Community forums will be held in neighborhoods served by Atlantic Trust branches. Residents can provide input on banking service quality and suggest improvements. The community engagement approach addressed the root problem: banks serving communities without understanding or respecting those communities' needs. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message from the board chair. Proposals approved unanimously. Proceed with implementation immediately. He showed the message to Patricia, whose suspended status didn't prevent her from understanding the historical significance of what had just occurred. The board has approved all reform measures. Implementation begins tomorrow morning. Every Atlantic Trust employee will receive notification of the new policies within 24 hours. The speed of corporate response demonstrated that systematic change was possible when leadership faced sufficient pressure and had clear solutions available. External auditors arrive Monday morning to begin a comprehensive review of all 847 branches. Customers who experienced discrimination can file complaints through the new system starting Friday. Karen realized that her discriminatory behavior toward countless customers over the years would now be systematically investigated and potentially compensated. Marcus checked his watch. 4:03 p.m. The Federal Reserve settlement window had closed, but the institutional changes he'd triggered would continue for years. Branch 247 will reopen tomorrow under new management with the enhanced protocols active. This location becomes a model for the entire system. The announcement meant that today's discrimination incident would be transformed into tomorrow's bias prevention success story. Patricia wiped her eyes and asked quietly, "Will any of us have the chance to learn from this and do better?" Marcus considered her question carefully. "Patricia, discrimination isn't just about individual bad actors. It's about systems that allow bias to flourish unchecked. Today we changed the system." The numbers told a story of institutional metamorphosis that exceeded even Marcus Williams' ambitious expectations. Branch 247, once Atlantic Trust's worst-performing location for customer satisfaction, had become their flagship model for inclusive banking practices. Customer satisfaction scores soared from 2.1 to 4.8 out of 5, the highest rating in the company's 127-year history. More importantly, discrimination complaints across all 847 branches dropped to 0 for 6 consecutive weeks, an unprecedented achievement in the banking industry. Jessica Lane's original live stream had been viewed 2.3 million times across all platforms, spawning countless reaction videos, academic discussions, and corporate training materials. Her spontaneous decision to record had fundamentally altered how financial institutions approached customer service nationwide. The Marcus Protocol had been implemented at over 200 banks beyond Atlantic Trust, creating an industry standard for addressing discrimination complaints. Federal regulators cited it as a model for proactive bias prevention, and 3 states had incorporated similar requirements into their banking regulations. Patricia Wong completed her bias training program and accepted a position with a civil rights organization, using her banking experience to help other institutions identify and eliminate discriminatory practices. Her transformation from perpetrator to advocate became a case study in personal redemption and professional growth. Karen Mitchell faced federal civil rights violations and paid $47,000 in fines. Her discriminatory statements during the live stream were used as evidence in successful discrimination lawsuits against other institutions. She eventually found work in a non-customer-facing role after completing extensive sensitivity training. Atlantic Trust's stock price had not only recovered, but reached all-time highs, as investors recognized the company's leadership in environmental, social, and governance (ESG) practices. The initial $127 million loss had transformed into $340 million in increased market value over 3 months. 17 major banks announced similar bias prevention initiatives, citing Atlantic Trust's success as inspiration. The Federal Reserve published new guidance encouraging all financial institutions to adopt technological solutions for discrimination prevention. Marcus Williams had been invited to testify before Congress about private sector solutions to systemic discrimination. His testimony emphasized that bias prevention wasn't just morally necessary, it was profitable, with reduced legal risk and improved customer retention delivering measurable returns on investment. The artificial intelligence monitoring systems had detected and prevented 1,247 potential discrimination incidents across the Atlantic Trust network. Each intervention represented a customer who received equitable treatment instead of discriminatory service, and a company that avoided legal liability and reputational damage. Customer demographics at previously problematic branches had diversified significantly, with minority account holders increasing by 43% system-wide. New account openings in underserved communities reached record levels as word spread about Atlantic Trust's commitment to inclusive banking. Marcus continued his systematic assessment work, expanding beyond banking to retail, healthcare, and housing industries. His methodology for documenting and addressing institutional bias had become a template for corporate accountability across multiple sectors. The Marcus Williams Foundation, established with $50 million from his personal wealth, provided grants to small businesses and individuals fighting discrimination through systematic documentation and legal action. 37 successful discrimination cases had received foundation support in the first quarter alone. Speaking engagements at universities, corporate conferences, and civil rights organizations had made Marcus one of the most sought-after voices on strategic activism and corporate accountability. His approach preparation, documentation, leverage, and systematic change was being taught in business schools and law schools nationwide. The transformation of Atlantic Trust proved that individual documentation could trigger institutional change when combined with strategic thinking and proper leverage. But Marcus's success required one crucial element: a witness willing to record and share the truth. Every day, in communities across America, discrimination happens in banks, stores, hospitals, schools, and workplaces. Most incidents go undocumented, leaving victims isolated and institutions unchanged. The difference between forgotten injustice and systematic reform often comes down to one person willing to pull out their phone and press record. Jessica Lane's decision to live stream didn't just capture discrimination, it created accountability. Her recording became evidence, her sharing created pressure, and her courage enabled change that protected thousands of future customers. Have you witnessed discrimination in your community? Your experience matters more than you realize. Like Marcus proved, change happens when we're prepared, strategic, and refuse to accept that's just how things are. Document what you see. Share your story. Support others facing similar challenges. Your voice could be the catalyst that transforms an entire industry. Share this story if it resonated with you. Comment below with your own experiences of discrimination or institutional change. Subscribe to Our Black Stories for more accounts of strategic justice and quiet power defeating loud prejudice. Hit that notification bell, because the next story of systematic transformation could inspire exactly the change your community needs. Together, we can make discrimination too expensive for institutions to ignore and too visible for society to accept. The tools exist. The strategies work. All that's missing is your willingness to use them. What will you document next?